my name's Laura and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be showing you how to make a ring using a gemstone or a bead that you want to set with a drill hole being set vertically rather than horizontally. So I am using these Mookaite wheel cut gemstones and setting them into this setting just here, as you can see, using wire, creating a few little flourishes just around the edging of the bead of the ring. Give it a second. You do get a closer shot obviously during the video. But this is the ring that we'll be making. This one and this one. And also you can use lampwork beads if you have any lampwork beads. In particular, this one can be rotated, which is quite nice if you want to create a kind of fiddle ring. Again, decoration down the side of this. So this is the technique that we will be learning today. The very end of the video, I do a very quick variation of the style that we're going to learn, which is just this one here. Again, using a lampwork bead, but using both the wires going through the through the bead instead of just one. It is very quick technique, and I do give you the option to not have to watch it if you don't want to. But anyway, that's it. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the materials that you're going to need for this project are as follows. This is a 0.8 bare copper wire or a 20 gauge wire. This I'm using because it's soft, it's malleable and it's easy to work with. It's going to be able to create the nice decorative swirls on the edging of the ring and also obviously stabilising the ring as well. So I would say if you don't like to use bare copper or you don't want to use sterling silver, which obviously again is a soft wire, please make sure if you are using a plated wire, that it is a soft wire, not any wire with any resistance or spring to it, because you will not get the fluid swirls that you need for this project. So the gemstones that I'm using for this particular project are Mookaite wheels. Okay, so they are cut like this. So when they're together, they kind of sit like this. They're beautiful gemstones. But when you set it like this, you don't always get to see the beauty of the decoration on the actual gemstone itself. Can you see that markings there? Which you wouldn't get to see that if it was set like this. You do a little bit, but not to the same. So this design is set so that you get to see the beautiful markings of these gemstones. And also, you know, it's just a nice way to set a slightly different gemstone cut. I have also got here a lampwork glass bead, just again because of the same reason for the wheel cut gemstones. It's nice to be able to have a gemstone, a lampwork bead that you can see the whole pattern around and appreciate that. And again, if you have it set like this, it's a little bit trickier, and also you lose the detail of the bead as well as having a super chunky ring. Okay, let's move on to tools. So the tools that you'll need for this project are flush cutters. Now these flush cutters are my bead long flush cutters. They're my more robust, kind of everyday pair of cutters. They cut lots of different gauges of wire, the heavier gauges, the finer gauges. They cut them with a nice finish. The only reason I ever use really my 0-on pliers are because they are more precision and they're great to cut your 0.4 gauges and your 0.315s and so on, and get a nice clean cut with those and get into those little corners. These are just a little less intricate here. They're just that little less precise, but these will cut your heavier gauges of wire as well. So that's why I've chosen those. I've got obviously the ring mandrel, which we will need to shape and size the ring. We have our chain nose pliers here, which we're just going to need these to actually get a good sort of sharp finish on your ring, to make sure you pull your wires through, just to be a general aid really. And these are just optional, but these are your nylon jaw pliers. These are going to be used if you need to get any kinks out of your wire or straighten your wire out. These are optional, but they are handy to have if needed. Okay, so I've cut a length of the 0.8 wire off. Now it's approximately 70 centimetres, around about 24 inches. Now it is a bit of a longer piece of wire, and this is purely because I've done a couple of these and I've ran out of wire on one side, or you know, it just causes a bit of a hiccup. So to me, my little top tip is it's always nice to have a little bit too much wire, and then you can cut the wire and use the scraps, maybe put it into a scrap box You can use your 0.8 wire for your earring findings, for your jump rings, for your links, so it won't go to waste, but at least then it doesn't affect your design. Okay, so I'm bringing the two ends together here so that it creates a loop in the center. Now when you're making a ring with wire, what often happens is the ring size will not be accurate. So because you're going to be wrapping wire around the inside of the ring shank, if I can just show you here, can you see how there's wire here and there's wire here? So that's obviously going to reduce the inner diameter of this ring. So we need to just factor that in when we're making the ring itself and allow an extra couple of sizes so that that reduces the inside to the correct size that you want. So my ring mandrel is a little bit old and worn, and you can tell the most popular sizes of rings that I do actually make are right in the center just here. However, if I hit the ring mandrel to the light, I personally can see the sizes. So I'm going to be aiming to make about a size O ring. So to do that, I'm going to drop down 2 sizes, which on this one, because these not half sizes, these go up in sizes of 2. So if I go to an O, I want to drop down to about a size Q. So I'm aiming for this size here. So I'm going to drop down 2 sizes to the Q here. Okay. So placing my wire, the sort of center of my wire, roughly around about the size Q. I'm using my finger and my thumb to secure that nice and keep that ready for me. So when I've let go of the wires, which I have, I've still got that exactly where I want it to go. Now I'm going to take the top wire here and wrap that all the way around and back to the front. Sorry, I'm just dodging the camera as I go. Okay, so that's wrapped around. I'm then going to take the bottom wire and wrap that all the way around. Just switching my hands and bring that to the front. Okay, what that will give me is a wire going in the opposite directions at the top and the bottom, and then I'll have 2 wires in the center. And if I turn the piece over, you'll have 3 wires at the back. Okay, so what happens a lot of the time, people do everything they're meant to. You go to up 2 sizes and you don't, and it still ends up being too big. The reason for that, a lot of the time, what happens is, even though I'm using a soft wire, it still has a slight memory to it. So if I let go of this now, it will relax and it will drop. And it might only be half a size or a size, because if you think one ring size is only about a centimetre, if that, not even that, I don't think, half of a centimetre, about half a centimetre between each size. So that only has to drop a tiny bit, but that affects your ring size. So at this point, just make sure, take that time before we do the next stage to go to your ring size. See, mine's dropped. See, this is the Q is sort of here, and it has dropped a little bit. So just go back to that size in, make sure you're happy where it is. Pull the wires either side to make sure that is exactly where you want it to be. Okay, and the wires are nice and condensed, and pinch them so that they're all sitting nice and tight together. Okay, and just before we do the next stage, make sure you're 100% happy with this. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm using my thumb to secure things, and I'm holding it at the back as well, so I've got it nice and stable. I'm going to take the top wire and bring that nice and tight, sort of down and almost towards the inside of my hand, so that when I switch my hand, I can still get that. And then I'm going to take the what is the bottom wire and bring that all the way around, so it's starting to lock. Okay, again, you can still make sure you stay at the size that you're meant to stay at. No, it doesn't move. Mine keeps rotating around. Where have you gone? There we are. There we go. So it's staying where I want it to stay. Okay, again, wrapping that around and then wrapping that one around. So what I've done is I'm effectively just created a nice tight little twist that is going to lock that into place. So when I take this off the ring mandrel, it should stay in place. Okay, so you can see no wires have crossed, and that's as it should be. Now when you start to hold the ring to work on it, try not to pinch these wires together like this, because that causes them to kind of go out of alignment and crumple. You want to try and hold it so that your finger goes inside the ring shank and you're holding all these wires nice and flat as they should be. So I'm going to choose a wire, and it doesn't matter which side I'm just going to take a wire and I'm going to bring it. Now I'm holding again that centre part nice and stable, and I'm going to bring the end of that wire up and into the ring shank. And I just want that wire to sit, so I'm just going to use my hand to encourage it to really sit right up against that first twist. I'm just making it like that, and then I'm going to fold that wire over the top. I'm going to switch back to my chain nose pliers now, kind of flatten that twist, and then make sure that stays as I want it to go. Now the wire's gone a little bit out of shape here. That's not a problem. We can come back and we want to twist that to make sure that stays exactly as we want and is back at the size that we were starting with. So it has gone up a little bit already just by that one little move. Okay, it's just kind of gone up about 1/4 of a size. You could, if you wanted to, get that back down, but that's fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to worry about this wire. This is what I call my backup wire. This is going to be used after I've set the gemstone. So what I want to do now is bring the wire, the other wire that we haven't wrapped or worked with yet, just towards this, so that when I set the gemstone onto it, it's going to sit and cover this twist. I want to bring the wire up. Okay, so you can come in. Okay, so you can come and bring that straight up. So it's looking like that. Okay. So it's coming straight up. Take your gemstone, pop it on, and again remember to put the decorative side to the top facing. And can you see how that's now sat nice and happily next to that wrap, and it's covering the twist that we made. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, again, bring that wire down nice and tight. And the next thing, to be honest with you, I do the next stage on the ring mandrel, just because I find that it gives you that stability and control. So placing that on here, I'm going to bring that down. I can make sure it's all sitting exactly as I want it to sit. Place that stone so it sits exactly where you want it to sit. Get that wire, and again, using your finger to keep this part of the wire in control. Gently bring this wire around and form that kind of swirl effect again. And then I want to open it out so it edges towards the outside of the gemstone or bead, whatever you happen to be using. Okay, now this one's got a bit of decoration. I don't want to cover that decoration, sorry, markings, and I don't want to cover that with this swirl, so I'm actually just, you can rotate the bead a little bit so have it set where you want it to go. And then what I'm going to do is just bring this wire down around the edging of the gemstone, almost like a wire bezel. So I can take this off now, and because I've got that control. And then again, I'm just holding that gemstone and the sort of the base of that twist together nice and stably. Is that a word? Stably? It is now. Just switching hands so I can just gently bring this wire all the way down. Okay, so you can see it's creating a nice little kind of frame around that gemstone. Now I know this wire here is going to be far too long, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim that. I'm probably going to cut, bear with me. Okay, so I just cut about 4.5 inches, about 11.5 centimeters off of the wire that we haven't used since the very beginning wrap, this one here, purely because it was a little bit too long and it was getting in the way, and I knew I didn't need that amount of wire. Now you're probably going to ask why I cut such a long length of wire off, because to be honest with you, it's a little bit of a trial and error. You never know. Sometimes you might need a little bit more, sometimes you might need a little bit less. Depends also on the depth of your gemstone. So this gemstone here, for instance, is quite deep, which means it might need a little bit more. But I personally would rather cut a little bit of wire that I know I could use that in another project, than find that I've got to cut the wire and waste the whole length of wire because I've kept it too short. So it is a little bit of a trial and error, I'm afraid. I do just give you a rough guideline. So I'm now going to bring this wire over to the opposite side. So I want a wire on this. I've got a wire on this side, so I'm going to bring this one around this side of the ring shank, holding it nice and steady again. I'm going to just feed this, and I'm controlling it so that I'm almost pulling it under the gemstone so that I get a really nice close wrap. Okay, bring that across, come back in with your chain nose pliers, Okay, like that. So now you'll see that both sides are looking the same. The stone has still got to be stabilized a little bit, okay, because it has obviously got a wire that's gone through it, so it needs to be locked into place. So what we're going to do, and this is the reason I've got nice equal lengths on both sides, so I know that both sides will be symmetrical. So I'm going to go to the other side now, just because that's comfortable for me, and I'm going to, using my thumb to hold that wire in place. You'll see I'm almost just controlling the ring itself, so I'm actually just using the wire, gently guiding that to form a circle that sits on that ring shank. I'm going to come around again, so I've got a nice flourish. Scoot it up a little bit if you need to, and then I'm going to come around the ring shank away from the stone, coming around this side. Oops, sent you flying then. So I'm coming around here, just use my pliers to scoot that wire so it's sitting nice and flush next to that spiral. And then what I'm going to do, because I still have some nice wire, at each point keep checking your ring shank, making sure you haven't pulled the wires too tight to bunch them up, and popping it onto the ring mandrel to check your sizing. You notice I'm just gently twisting the ring mandrel. That's bumping it down to the size that I want, so I can make sure that it's at the right sort of size and we're not going too far away. So you can see now it's edging towards that size O, which is the size that I was aiming for. So there's not a lot of work that needs to be done to the size of the to the sort of inner diameter. So hopefully it should be about the right sort of size. So I'm now still taking the same wire here. I'm going away from the sort of wrap to bring another spiral in. Just a little one. Again, just controlling that. So it's coming around. Use your pliers if you need to get that control. Now I'm going to bring the wire up, and so it hooks back over that spiral, so it almost blends in with the sort of design. And then what I'm going to do is bring that over to the opposite side. Okay, but before I do that, I'm going to bring it back out because I'm going to mirror on this side what I've done on this side. So I'm going to turn the ring over, and I'm going to just quickly, I'm going to do this a bit quicker now because obviously you've seen me do it once, but I want to mirror that same design. There we go. You can, like I said, use your pliers to position that if you need to. Pop it back on here. You know, don't be afraid to kind of use your pliers if you need to use them, almost like a vice, and get everything to stay where it's meant to stay. And you can also see why I'm saying it's quite important that the wire that you use is a soft wire. Okay, just do that final flourish. Get that wire out of the way. So back at this point now, so coming up and over that spiral. So it kind of sits in that gap there. So both of these wires are good to go in the opposite direction. Got that one there, you got that one there. So I'm going to bring that one over, and I'm going to bring this one over. And what that's doing is kind of locking everything together. Okay. And then all I'm going to do, I'm actually going to trim these wires again now, because I know I don't need this much. I'm only sort of trimming them a little bit, probably about an inch, 2 inches there. I mean, like I said, you could say, well, I'll cut 6.5 inches away from the initial length that I told you at the beginning. But to be honest with you, each one is going to turn out differently. It's better to allow that little bit extra so that you don't find yourself with not enough wire. And then I'm going to bring that wire back around. Again, I'm using my pliers just so that I can get a really nice tight wrap. I'm wrapping that just here, securing that. So that's the end of the wire just there. I'm going to come in with my pliers, snip, and then just really make sure that that's blended into that work there. Repeat on the other side. So again, I'm going to just bring that wire all the way around and back up and over, trim. Oops, that flew. And then I'm going to just gently go over the work. Now I will say, if you're not using a bare wire, then come in with your nylon pliers, just because they're not going to mark the wire if you slip with your pliers for any reason. There you go, just settle that down. So there's your ring, and what I'm going to do now is pop it back on the ring mandrel, and it's a little bit smaller, but that's fine, because what I'm going to do is just, again, holding the ring itself and twisting the ring mandrel. I'm pushing a little bit harder down on with the ring as well, and that has taken that. So there's my Q that I started with. That's the O that I was aiming for, and that ring is sitting just around about on that O, which is what I wanted. So you can see that you can manipulate it a little bit and get that sizing back to as it is intended. Also, a little tip: if you find that your ring is a little bit big by about a size, you can take a 0.4 wire and hand coil the ring shank. That will normally reduce the ring by one size. Let's see if it fits. It fits, and that's how it looks. And there you go. That's your nice simple ring. I mean, this is optional. You don't have to do the double swirls if you don't want to. You could just do one single swirl. But the key is to make sure that you stabilize this part here, and that it's all kind of locked in and secured. And that is that ring. I'm going to do an optional project and just very quickly use the lampwork bead that we've got. Now, you don't have to watch this if you don't want to, and if you are going to leave now, I hope you like this video, and if you do, please give me a thumbs up. Click subscribe, and a notification button would be great, because then you would know what I'm doing. I aim to do one of these, at least one of these tutorials at least once a month, along with my unboxings and other stuff. And yeah, other than that, have a great day. If you're staying with me, hi, nice to see you. I'm just currently cutting another length of my wire. Okay, I'm just giving it a quick clean, just because it's a little tiny bit tarnished. And to do that, I'm just using a soft sandpaper sort of sponge. Okay. Pop in. Again, I'm going to drop it down a couple of sizes. Wrap the top wire. Wrap the bottom wire. Nothing's changing to what we've previously done. Locking it, making sure we're happy with the position. Bring it round, bring it round. I'm kind of hoping that you can see how quick and easy it is to do these once you sort of get the technique as well. Okay, so that's locked. Taking this here, let's move you out of view. Taking one of the wires, bring it around to lock everything into place. So I want to show you something a little tiny bit different. You can do the same technique with one wire. It does have the same effect. You can see that here. It's one that I've done just exactly the same as it did the mookaite one I've just shown you. Okay, but this one I wanted to show you something a bit different. When you have lampwork beads, or when you have a gemstone that, or even a bead or a gemstone or anything that has a larger drill hole, then I'm bringing both these wires up together now. So I've wrapped it very quickly, but instead of folding it back across, I'm bringing it back up. And then I'm going to pop the gemstone on. Sorry, not gemstone, the bead. Feed that directly on. Okay, bring it back down to make sure you've got it where you want it to go. So both those wires are going to go through that stone or bead. And what I'm going to do is the exact same thing. Bring it around. Just so that they sit next to each other, opening them out. Okay, now you could, if you wanted to get a bit fancy, do a weave here and do a woven splash down there. I'm just going to show you with the bare wires. In fact, I'm definitely going to try that, I think, with a weave. I think that looked really cool. Bring this away. Bring both those wires around. Okay, you can kind of open them out so they really kind of swirl and catch. And you're happy with that? And then you could just split those wires out. And repeat as before. So again, around that ring shank, just to lock those wires in place on both sides. Stop it from going anywhere. And I would then finish as the other one. In fact, I'll do that quickly now. Okay, so I just very quickly finished the sides of this. I did them very slightly different. There's a reason. One, I didn't have enough wire, and two, I just thought it'd be nice to look a little bit different. But this is a good example of how a different size bead will make an effect on the amount of wire that you use, because obviously I've used up more, but also it's quite nice to play about with different finishings as well. So there you have it. There's your sort of double wire going through if you've got a gemstone or a bead that can take 2 wires. Again, I might try doing it with the weaving going around so that that's actually going to be woven. I think that would look quite pretty. Let me know what you think. Do you want me to do that? Maybe I could do a little tutorial on that. So there's your 2 different styles with your lampwork beads, and then there's your mookaite beads just there. So again, if you stayed with me to the end, thank you very much. I hope you like this video, and if you do, as I said, thumbs up, thank you, notifications, subscribe. Have a great day. Thank you.